Hi, this is a video response to Zen Arcade 64, who is saying that Barack Obama is going to be the next George McGovern in terms of the election. Not saying that Obama is like McGovern in terms of his policies. Zen Arcade 64 is saying that Obama is going to go down in flames, electorally speaking, like George McGovern, and that he sees John McCain winning a landslide victory in 2008. To be perfectly honest, I'm looking at the numbers right now, and I'm not seeing what you're seeing, but maybe you can enlighten me. Let's quickly, first of all, just walk through the current poll results. Now, of course, we have to realize that polls change. We know that a lot is going to still happen between now and November, but right now, the polls don't point to a McCain landslide. And we'll just roll through the numbers right now. I'm not going to read all of them. We're just going to let it roll, and you can see for yourself that Barack Obama is ahead of John McCain in every single recent survey by every major media organization. Now, I don't personally put much credence in the in terms of the polls that show the 15% lead or the 12% lead. I think those seem to be a little bit high, and I'm not sure I believe those particular polls. But the fact of the matter is that every single poll that's been recently conducted is really showing a lead, even if it's a small lead, for Barack Obama, and I'm not seeing how this translates into a landslide for John McCain. But we can go further, and we can look at an analysis of the Electoral College votes. So we're going to look at this slide now. As you can see from looking at the analysis for the Electoral College, you have to have 270 electors to win. Right now, it's estimated that Obama has 238 electors, and John McCain has 163, with 137 electors kind of as toss-ups. So this means basically that if we're to kind of assume that this is an accurate reading of things as they stand today, Barack Obama needs to get 32 of those toss-ups in order to win the presidency, whereas McCain has to get 107 of those electors in order to win the presidency. Again, he might do it, but this doesn't, at this point in time, to me, point to a landslide for McCain. I'm just saying. But let's continue. If we look at the numbers from Super Tuesday and we look at the amount of voter turnout between the two parties, we can see that 14.6 million Democrats turned out to vote on Super Tuesday, whereas only 9 million Republicans turned out to vote on Super Tuesday. So this kind of points to a higher level of enthusiasm within the Democratic Party, and the numbers seem to bear this out. Additionally, if we look at the macro trends in terms of who in the United States considers themselves to lean towards the Democratic Party versus who seems to lean towards the Republican Party, again, these numbers also seem to point towards the Democrats. Let's look at the numbers. In 2002, it was an even split. 43% said they either were Democrats or leaned towards the Democratic Party. 43% said they were either Republicans or leaned towards the Republican Party. Now look, 5 years later in 2007, the picture has radically changed. 50% of Americans say they are either Democrats or lean towards the Democratic Party, whereas only 35% of Americans say they are Republicans or lean towards the Republican Party. So in 5 years' time, the Democrats have gained 7%, whereas the Republicans have lost 8%. This is not to say that John McCain might not win, but it still doesn't point towards a McCain landslide. That's all I'm saying. Now, Zen Arcade 64 is comparing Barack Obama to George McGovern based on, in part, it sounds like, the fact that Barack Obama is against the war in Iraq and George McGovern was against the war in Vietnam, and those are true statements. However, that's where the similarity ends. This is not 1972. Look at the numbers. Americans are saying by 67% that going to Iraq was not worth it. The consensus, the American consensus, is that the war in Iraq itself was a mistake. That is certainly by no means is that to be interpreted as any slight to the men and women who are fighting in Iraq. They are heroes and they deserve to be treated as such. But the consensus in the United States is that we shouldn't have gone to war in Iraq. 67%. Now, more interesting and more germane to this particular campaign is what should we do about it now? And again, the numbers seem to lean Democratic. 25% of Americans surveyed are indicating that we should get out of Iraq right now. 43% of Americans are saying we should get out within 1 year. If we take those two numbers together, that's 68% of the American public feels that we should either get out of Iraq right now or we should get out within a year. Only 26% of Americans surveyed say we should stay in Iraq for as long as it takes. Only 26%. Now, Barack Obama himself has said he wants to be, and his favorite line is that we should be as careful getting out of Iraq as we were careless getting in. He's not saying we should pull out this second. What he's saying is we need to have a phased withdrawal. But basically, about 68% of the American population seems to agree with Barack Obama in terms of the general time frames for getting out of Iraq. And 26%, only 26% agree with the idea of staying in, quote unquote, as long as it takes. Let's look at the top issues that Americans are worried about. Here's another recent survey. And in this particular survey, people surveyed were asked to rank the one issue that was the most important issue to them. Okay? 27% said jobs in the economy was number one. 24% said Iraq was number one. 18% said energy and gas, the price of gas, was number one. 8% said health care. 6% said terrorism. 5% said immigration. Now look at this. If we take jobs and economy and energy and gas, which are basically bread and butter issues, that's 45% of the people surveyed. Okay? If we add health care to that, that's 53% of the people surveyed. Okay? The bread and butter issues are taking 53% of the issues. Now, if we look at the issues where the Republicans are clearly strongest in terms of public perception, terrorism and immigration, that comes to only 11% in terms of the number one issue. So Americans are very focused on jobs, the economy, energy, and gas to the tune of 45% of Americans. Iraq gets 24%. Terrorism and immigration taken together, 11%. Here's a survey that indicates what party do you think is best on specific issues. And some of these are not too surprising. On health care, the Democrats are viewed as being stronger by 54% to 24%. On the economy, Democrats are viewed as being stronger by 54% to 28%. But looky here, on Iraq, Democrats are viewed as being stronger 46% to 34%. So this is not to say that McCain won't win. Okay, we don't know what's going to happen in the next several months. But looking at the picture right now, looking at the numbers, looking at what people are focused on, looking at the messages, I'm just having a lot of trouble seeing a McCain landslide.